Welcome back to our second series of Becoming a Self-Employed Estate Agent, our YouTube playlist, where this series we're inviting the Avocado partners to join us on film and tell us about their experiences rather than me and Ian just selling the dream like snake oil salesmen. So today,
Snake oil
do
sales.
you like that?
Wow, that's
Yeah.
that's a bit strong. I didn't realise you were a 1980s estate agent, Mike. So
I'm joined by Matt. Matt's already cut in there. Matt Pulford is our agent for Wokingham. Joined by his business partner, Matt Barrell, about a year into your journey as a self-employed partner. Matt and I go back 15 years or so
yeah,
as rivals and colleagues
yeah, right.
in different offices.
Yeah.
So there's a great mix, and Matt obviously grew up and knows Wokingham like the absolute back of his hand. So it was a natural progression for you to come back to Wokingham and work in your home patch.
Yeah.
From that point of view. But at the time of making the jump, what made you take the risk to go self-employed, having had what was a very successful estate agency career through corporate and independent estate agency?
Wow. Okay. So the easiest answer for that is that the business I was working for at the time probably didn't, and I think I only realised this part after I'd started and further into my journey with avocado. Really didn't fit. They didn't sit well with my core values and what I believed the customer should be receiving in way of service and how they should be looked after. Because we know now more specifically, having worked in as a self-employed model, that you get coerced into thinking about what makes you the most money first before
Yeah.
what's right for the customer. And I think that based on that, and no disrespect for the previous business I used to work for, I think we just sort of went in different directions. And I think the move was easy because I knew that the skill set that I had after the back of, goodness me, 17, 18 years worth of working in property and Wokingham being my hometown. It was an easy move for Wokingham, and it was nice that you guys gave me the option to do that. But then I think even more so, it's very easy to say, I don't want to be a 1980s estate agent. I want to be someone that just does the job because they love doing the job and they love looking after people.
I think that's one of the big parts. And I felt the same working employed, that the business was looking after the business, which is fine
Oh,
because
yeah, it's got to look
that's,
after itself,
yeah,
right? Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I agree. In many companies, they're started for the reasons of changing a market or being better than what's already there, and then slowly morph into run by accountants,
Yes.
and every decision is made on the basis of what benefits the business rather than what benefits the client.
And that happened all the time, and you look
Yeah.
back at scenarios, and I cringe now, and I think back to certain situations that I was involved with where you were being led to do something that wasn't the right thing by the customer or the consumer, and it was purely around a profit margin and a way in which to make more money. And don't get me wrong, every business has got to
Yeah.
thrive, right? Every business has got to run, every business got to be profitable, otherwise you don't employ staff. I get all of that.
Yeah.
But I think that when you look at the business that we give now and the service that we get now, because it's just Matt and I, we're not accountable to anyone other than just the two of us.
Hmm.
We just do right by them.
Yeah.
But do right by the customer. You'll always do right by yourself, and then thereafter, it makes sense.
I think especially in that small town, market town mentality
Mhm.
of where we are, where we're talking about a Wokingham is a classic commuter belt town where you get a bad reputation, and
Everybody knows about it.
everybody knows. Everyone in the playground is
Yeah,
told
yeah, yeah.
that.
And feedback's so important as well, isn't it? I mean, because a lot of our business comes from a Facebook group called
Yeah,
Wokingham Gossip Girls, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And often have a look at it on my partner's phone. I look at okay, all right, fine, that's good.
Yeah.
So I asked for estate agent recommendations, and the amount of times, and this is an exaggeration, but I reckon 60% of the recommendations that come through when someone's looking for someone to help them is an avocado partner,
Yeah.
avocado as general, or Matt and I. So it just shows that people see the value in what we do.
So 3 years in, what's been the hardest ongoing grind of working for yourself as opposed to being an employee in a business?
It's been 2 stages actually. The hardest grind was when you're on your own and not having anyone to bounce off the back of, which between Matt and I, we've now fixed because we've
Yep.
got that opportunity to do so. I think the current grind now is not so much market share or people wanting to give us their properties to sell, because we're really fortunate that because we've got a good brand in Wokingham now, we get calls regularly from that, and we're never going to become complacent on that. We'll still do good marketing and everything else that we do, but the challenges that come along with the job, and every estate agent will see this, is the challenge of getting the deals through from once you've agreed them until they get to exchange. And the hand-holding of the service that we give to our clients is great, but then you've got the other side of it where you've got solicitors that just don't
Yeah.
seem to be performing at the moment, and haven't been for a while. So the consistent chasing you have to go through the process. So it moves in waves, I think. Like Matt joining me in Wokingham was a blessing in disguise. It was fantastic. We've dovetailed really well and the business has flourished from it, and it's great and we love it. The customer database and support we've got of the people that we work with, brilliant, love it. They recommend us till the cows come home. And don't get me wrong, we don't win every bit of business, but we do win our fair share of it. It's the intricacies of the job, which were the challenging parts, which people don't see. And it's the bits that once you agree a sale, because in truth, that's the relatively easy bit. It's the 3-4 months thereafter, which is the challenging part, which is really where the fees.
That's where you earn it.
That's where you earn the fee.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
You don't earn your money in selling the house. You earn the money in completing on the sale.
Totally right.
Because people think estate agents just get the deal done.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's that's the first 3 weeks.
First 3. Well, if you get the price right, it's the first 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then it's making sure that everybody finds the right place for them to move on to, and then communicating effectively with the other businesses. And again, Wokinham's great. I've got lots of really good estate agents in Wokingham, and a lot of because I started my career in Wokingham, I know a lot of them still. So it's really easy to pick up the phone to them and have a conversation and make sure you can iron out the detail if you need to. But yeah, the challenge.
It's interesting that you pick out. It's still the same issue. It's not the running a business. It's not the accounting side. It's not the marketing. It's not the this. It's not the other. It's purely I can get all that done. I can learn all of those things. That's fine. It's the constraints of the job are still the constraints of the job, which you pull whether you...
I'll give you an example. What happened last week. So midway through last week, we're getting to the point where we're close to exchange on a property, and there was some final inquiries that had been sent over from the buyer solicitor, and they sent them on. I said, could you do me a favour? Could you just copy me into the correspondence? I wasn't confident that the seller's solicitor would pass them on as quickly as I would, and he would be able to respond to it. He's away from last weekend. Anyway, I got copied into the correspondence on Wednesday, sent them straight to the seller because I knew that it would take a couple of days for that bit of correspondence. Up until early part of this week, he still hadn't had the inquiries, but had already responded to them because he'd had them through from me. And it's just that foresight to be able to be ahead of the game, so that you're not allowing the 2 or 3, 4 day turnaround for dealing with some correspondence to delay someone's move and purchase of house.
Totally agree. The first bit you said is interesting because I totally agree with it. I'd call it's decision paralysis when you're on your own. You know the answer every single time.
Yeah.
You know the why every single time, but there's something in you that is stopping you from doing it.
Yeah.
But when you've got someone else who's next to you, or you have a responsibility for in a financial sense, time or financial, that paralysis just melts away because you've just got to get it done because you've agreed with someone else that you're going to do it.
Yeah.
There's the accountability to someone else. They're not your boss. It's totally irrelevant. I've had that where we started the business, myself and Ian. If I said I was going to do something, I would do it. I do feel that if it was just me sat on my own, I would have stewed over anything for hours.
Yeah.
But because I know someone else is reliant on me for doing it, and if we don't do it, we don't get paid. We don't work.
Yeah, all of the above. It's a domino effect, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I do things where I deal with it at a box off, and I'm like, I just want to phone Matt and tell him that I've done that. And luckily, every time I've done that, he's like, "That's such a good way of doing it, Matt. I tell you what, that's definitely the right way." I don't think he said to me that was the worst thing you should have done, Matt. And thankfully.
But not doing it's the worst thing you could have done.
Like, when you do have a tricky situation, obviously Matt and I have been around for a little while, so we know most situations. We know how to guide people on most difficulties within a property sale. But even just having that secondary person to go to and go, tell her, I'm looking at it this way.
Yeah.
And if they throw a curveball in there and you go, oh, actually, that makes total sense to do it that way.
Yeah.
And that's right for the customer. That's the right thing to do. So it works perfectly with Matt and I.
Yeah. And even if you don't have a business partner to do that with, just finding someone else who does what you do, who has the time to just bounce those things from, I think it's just got massive value because it will just speed up your decision making.
Well, the benefit with the brand, as you know, is that you've got a number of other people in the brand that are self-employed individual estate agents covering a patch, and I know that they've got relationships with maybe self-employed individuals of a neighbouring town where they get on well. They collab quite a lot because there's that natural sort of turnover of areas. And they'll just pick up the phone and have a chat with each other. And sometimes those conversations are useful because I remember when I started off on my own, I'd phone you actually. Yeah, that doesn't happen so much. We talk different stuff now. But I remember I phone you and go, what do you think of this? And you'd be like, yeah, that sounds about right. It's like, I say, I think it's worth this much on the rent, Mike. He's like, I had at least 10% off.
That was the rental market. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't even know if it was 10. It might have been 20 at the time. I don't know. Yeah, absolutely.
Probably
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the last couple of years. I imagine you've got a few of these because of the way your brain works. But single moments, what's the best, and I guess worst as well, single moments that you've known, that made you feel like you're on the right path of what you're doing? Is there any that come to mind?
Yeah, the one specifically, actually, there was a lady that we were helping sell a house for over on Forest Road. You'll remember it. It's more of just a helping someone do it because I think that the value that we get from the business isn't necessarily the money that of course, it's the money that we make because that keeps everything going, but it's the ability to physically help people and overcome those obstacles. And there was a lady that we were helping sell a house in Forest Road. It was too big for her. She realised that. Sell a 2-acre plot of walled garden. The back had an acre at the front. She just couldn't look after it anymore, and she phoned us, and she had all the big boys out, like your Knight Franks and your Savills and everybody else, and they weren't interested in helping her. And she was like, I don't get it. But they didn't come back to her in bits and pieces, and we used to meet up and have a chat, and she was like, I really want to work with you, Matt. And it was great. We found a great buyer, then it inadvertently ended up helping sell theirs, and then we ended up finding her next place to buy. And that didn't come with its own, that came with many complications because you're managing a sale underneath and you had a 3-link chain. And don't get me wrong, very advantageous to us, but the key goal was to make sure she got moved. And we got it over the line. And I remember that day where I could phone her and I went, it's done.
Yeah.
It's done. We don't have to worry anymore. It's exchanged. It's completed on this day. We've got a month to try and get yourself organised, do what you need to. And since then, Matt and I have been around to go and have like pastries and coffee with her and have a quick catch up in her new house, talk us through all the plans and bits and pieces. And I think for me, it's the customer journey that I get most excited about, and knowing that I was there and able to help them from start to finish to get to where they needed to get to.
Yeah, I think it's really key, and not forgetting who we are as estate agents is most people, they'll define an estate agent as someone who sells houses. Where I think our definition of that is someone who helps people move.
Yeah.
And I know that might sound like a nuance, but it's a very different aspect of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could have just flogged our house.
Oh, totally could just sold a house and sold it to the person that was able to do it quickest and did whatever. But the buyer was the right buyer, lovely family that bought it. Got plans to do bits and pieces to the house, and I remember during the process she phones me, and because the guy was buying had to get a bat survey done because it's quite a unique house.
Yep.
And he hadn't told.
I love a bat survey.
Love a bat survey. Yeah, absolutely. And I remember she phoned me, and he was like, "I've got some guys here to do a bat survey." The buyer hadn't told me he'd organised it or forgotten he'd organised it, and blah blah blah. And I was like, "Oh crap!" And she's there on her own, like 70-year-old lady. I don't know how old she is, but I'll say 70. She'll probably appreciate that. I remember she phoned me. She's like, "What's going on?" I was like, "I don't know." So I phoned it. I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Are you all right?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's fine. Just felt a bit awkward." And I was like, "Okay, fine. I'm on my way around." Hadn't had dinner at that time. I was like, "You drink red wine, don't you?" And she's like, "Yeah, okay, fine. I'll be around in a bit." So I went down to Waitrose, got myself a microwave meal, ended up having dinner across the dining room table from her, having a glass of red wine until they popped off and did what they needed to do, checked to see if they had it. And I remember helping her to set up her TV in the front room she had for 3 years. Couldn't work out how to use the smart part of it. But it was just, it's those sort of scenarios that make the job that good.
Yeah. It's something that would have never happened before.
It would never. Would you have ever done it in a corporate? Would you have ever seen that happen in a corporate business?
I don't feel like you'd have been allowed
No.
if you'd have said, "Look, this is the problem. This is what I need to go and fix."
Yeah.
I just don't feel like you'd have been allowed the time to
No.
do it. And
Well, let's be honest. We never would have been able to give out, or never would have wanted to give out our personal numbers because we used to be in there from 8:30 until 6 or 8 until 6 every time. You didn't really want to be working outside of that because you'd already exhausted yourself for the 10 hours or 10.5 hours that you're there. Whereas, because obviously every seller and buyer's got a WhatsApp group with us, they've got comms with us. If they need to talk to us, they can. Like, the benefit of doing the job that we do is we don't have to stack them high and only sell 50%. We take on the small select amount of properties that we really will sell and get everybody through, and then we'll get it done for them.
what'd you go for a Charlie Bingham?
I can't remember. I think it was. Do you know what? I remember having a look and I was like, I can't eat most of this stuff because all of it's got some level of like cow's milk intolerance, so it's a bit of a pain in the butt. Well, yeah, anyway. Yeah, it literally is. I think it was I think it was something like a lasagna. I was like, I know I shouldn't be eating this, but I could have just really enjoyed it. Go for it. But yeah, bought a bottle of red, had a glass. She finished off the rest of the bottle, and then we just sat and chatted for the rest of the evening. It was delightful.
Yeah, I mean, it's a totally different moment from one that anyone else will give.
Yep.
Which is the best part of it.
Yeah.
Controversial topic swirls around LinkedIn, and LinkedIn's a funny place. Self-employed estate agents are building businesses that have no asset value.
Mm-hmm.
What is your... And I accept that totally.
Yeah.
Because it's not a sellable asset in a sense. You might be able to flog your license onto someone later on, but it's never gonna be a life-changing amount of money, and we accept that. So you're building a business with Matt that the likelihood is won't have a financial exit value. So financially and money-wise, what is the long-term plan for you guys? What are you doing with that income to the business that means that when you do exit, you've got something to show for it?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question because it's often one that I get asked quite a lot from other people because they know there's no exit number. The benefit to the brand, let's talk avocado for a specific second, is that you've allowed me to go and run a business how I want to run a business, which I think is critical. And I think anyone coming from a corporate line will see the value of that, but probably won't see the value of it until they're probably a year to 18 months into doing it. So they need to take the punt on it. I think the exit value isn't a multiplier of your turnover or whatever else. It's what you've been able to acquire over a period of time with earning more money, the way you've been able to earn more money through the business and being able to be more sensible with how that money's apportioned based on your tax liabilities, based on how you save that back, based on your car allowances and bits and pieces you're able to buy a car through the company. More specifically, how you can then offset your pension contributions against your corporation tax relief, which then means you're paying into your own pension pot each year, but then offsetting it against tax liabilities for the business. There's lots of different ways, and that's your end game.
Yes.
Your end game is your pension that pays you when you're at that level. But you also, every year, if you pay yourself X amount of pounds because you want to be as tax efficient as you can, but there's always a surplus every year of an amount of money. You think about if you do it for 10 years and you've had £25,000 worth of extra money every year, you've got £250,000 worth of extra cash, plus you've been paying into a corporation tax pot. Sorry, you're paying into your pension pot as well as putting your car through your business, so you've got no extra real cost to you individually. Then you can go and do what you want.
Yeah. I think it's such a good succinct answer, which is you don't have a buyout value, but you have a asset value somewhere else.
Yeah.
That you've made plans for. And whether that's pension, whether that's property, whether that's investing, it doesn't really matter. That's what your own tune is. That's what you're into.
Yeah.
It's
like a good couple of years for anyone to get to a point where they're making a profit. Right? And it will take them a little while to get to a point where they're making a profit or they're making extra cash.
And be confident enough to forecast that as well.
Absolutely. They'll be 5 years in before they're looking to really think, I'm making some really good money here now. And you've got to be going into it on the basis that you accept that.
Yeah.
It's not a quick, easy win, right? You've got to put a lot of hard work in. You've got to graft. You've got to make sure that you do the job. But in 5 years, when you've suddenly got an extra 25, 30, 40,000 pound in your bank, and you can offset that in different ways, you can pay it into your pension, you keep it back, you can sit it into a separate spaces account, and then use that as a rainy day fund, or just keep it there as a saved pot of money that just keeps going and going and going until you get to that point of when you go, I've been doing this 10, 15 years. I'm now at whatever age I am. I don't really want to be doing this anymore. I'm going to do something else.
Yeah.
But you can do something else knowing that you've got a much heavier pension pot than you would have done if you were employed. Yeah. And you've also got another amount of money in your bank. So you actually don't need to earn money immediately to satisfy anything because you've got it there.
I think that's where it flips over. You just made me think I had to do an analysis for a finance broker. And it was a personal one because I have to make a personal guarantee behind a business of something that we're doing within the business. And he said, well, I need all these lines filling out. And it started with, what's your monthly income? So it's X. And then it's, what are your costs on car? Nothing. Phone, nothing. Broadband, nothing. These are all businesses. These are all costs that are paid for legitimately by the business. So what's coming into my bank account as salary and dividends, I don't have anywhere near the weight of costs out of my personal bank account that I used to as an employee.
Yeah.
So maybe my income hasn't changed vastly from when I was an employee to being self-employed, but how my disposable income is a totally different show.
Totally different ball game. Totally different.
I think that, like you say, that comes in year 2, 3, and 4 of working for yourself, when you become confident to make things become business costs and actually layer a bit of cost in your business.
And also for the banks to feel confident to lend you the money as well, because they're not going to do that in year 1, but they might do that in year 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So, and you've got to be confident enough to take a risk on it as well. Like I deliberately made a decision to purchase my car rather than do a lease. Because if I purchased a car and for whatever reason the business didn't work, it's an asset that I could sell and pay off the finance with it, rather than being attached to a lease agreement for 4 years and having to pay out an amount of money for 4 years. It's a very deliberate decision because it was a safe one. It was a safer one should it not work. And you've got to think about the fact of, of course you want it to work, but you've got to think about the variables about why it might not. But when this comes up, I'll get a lease because I know it's worked. And I'll probably have enough money in the bank to be able to cover the 4-year lease in it anyway, so it won't really make an awful lot of difference. And it's how you manage that cost. And I think going back to your initial question, I've waffled a bit, which is pretty standard for me, so I'm sorry you're listening to this. You don't have a disposable asset at the end or a tangible asset that you can sell, but you do have an ability to acquire over a period of time, providing you do a good job. Right? It's all accountable.
That's where it starts and finishes.
Yeah, exactly that. You've got a good opportunity to make as much money as you possibly want, to save as much money, to offset it how you want to set up ancillary businesses under your primary business and become a landlord. But to set up a new business somewhere. I mean, you've got all those options.
Yep, totally agree. Last question. What's the advice that you would give to those who are watching, who are thinking about doing it, but are on the fence?
I think it's a really tough decision because I think the salaries that I don't know what a general lettings manager or estate agency manager would be paid now, but I think it's difficult to walk away from the monthly guaranteed cost.
Yep.
However, the challenge to that I give those people that are sitting there doing that is, how much are you missing out on? Like, I take the kids to school. I take Oliver to school every day of the week, pick him up two or three times a week. Try and do that with Sophia as well. A little bit more challenging because schools are in different locations now. That is something I could never have had. Yeah. I think you look at this and go, what's the risk? Okay, have I got enough money in the bank? I think that's one thing that I probably wish I probably had a little bit more when I first started. Have I got enough money in the bank to be able to cover myself for a year if I need to? I think that's really, really important. If you come into it expecting to earn money in the first 2 or 3 months, don't do it.
And I think that's where I asked the same question to Matt Barrell, and where you and he would be very different is his answer was, look, I was in my 20s. I had absolutely no responsibilities. So I had about 10k in the bank, and I just thought, well, I can blow this 10k. If it doesn't work, I can make that back.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant. Whereas having a mortgage, 2 kids, and complications in life,
totally right.
You can't quite go, well, I've got 10k in my bank account. If I get down to 0, I can move in with mum, stuff it. Like,
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. No, it absolutely doesn't. There are more commitment. And I guess it depends on where you are in your life. Good point. But I was ready
mm,
to do it. That I think was the key bit. I think there'll be a lot of people out there that have been doing a job for a few years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years and going, I've had enough of working every other Saturday. I've had enough of doing this. I've had enough of doing that. I don't want to just always do what's right by the company. I want to do what's right by me
Yeah.
and the customer. And if that's you, do it. There's no harm. People are successful. The brand's good. The brand's strong, right? It's really strong. It's a great brand. It gives everybody the opportunity to do the job. And it's a great place to work. Like, we're not employed by you, so we can do really what we want to. But there's always such a good synergy between us together and also the partners that you won't ever feel like you shouldn't do it.
I think that's a key decision making, or key part of the decision making is, if you go self-employed, whether you go with Avocado or whether you go with one of the other 50 odd self-employed brokerages that exist in the UK, is finding that synergy and finding that match up, that agency, that brokerage, whatever we're going to term it as, matches what you want to do.
Yeah.
Do you want a pure supplier of systems? Do you just want the platform to trade from? Do you want a brand? Do you want something that is known in your local area, or is it just about you? There's different questions that you can ask, because there's different service offerings out there.
Yeah.
We're proud of ours, obviously, and we've done it our way.
Yeah.
We'll never be the biggest,
Yeah.
but we like to think that the retention rate of the agents will be the highest.
You always go for quality. Yeah.
It's what we try.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, so often there's always going to be the odd one, isn't there, where it doesn't quite work out, because that's just life. But the quality of the individual that you bring into the brand is, you always look and go, okay, there's someone new that's joining. You're like, okay, they're good. I know of them. Like, and I just think that there's a lot of other self-employed brokerages out there that are just looking for bums on seats because it's another patch that they could say is theirs. Whereas the model's different here. And I think because you're part of the benefit that we have, and I name a few other partners within the group, we're hemmed in quite a lot. So Wokingham is surrounded by Will Mike's patch. It's surrounded by Ryan and Sanjay's patch. You've got Georgina, Dan, Neil that cover the other side. You've got a few other partners. Not one of those businesses would I ever feel uncomfortable with by going, they're going to look after you. And I think that's great. That's what you want from a business, because you're only as good as your worst. As your worst partner.
Absolutely, yeah.
Whereas I think it's very different to that in other brokerages, where you can't always guarantee that you're going to have the right or the best person available in that next town to be able to show you what you can do.
I guess the bigger you get, the more difficult that becomes.
Totally right.
To manage.
Yeah,
if
totally
you've got
right.
500, then there's absolutely, the quality control, I'm sure, is there, but you don't know that person, so you can't provide that personal guarantee that you want to provide to someone. Say,
totally right.
Look, if you're selling your house in Swindon, Ben is going to move mountains for you.
Yeah, and if you've got a place in Stevenage, Ricky's going to look after you, or if you've got a place in Finchampstead or Crowthorne or wherever, Will and Mike are fantastic guys. They're going to look after you. They're going to do right by you.
Matt Pulford, Avocado partner, thanks so much for giving us your insight into your first 3 and a bit years as an Avocado property partner alongside your business partner, Matt Barrell. If you found this interesting, or if you've got any other questions that you would like us to fire at our self-employed partners, please do pop it on the comments or send us a message, because we'd love to give you the answers that you're looking for before you make any decisions about whether you want to become a self-employed estate agent. Until next time, thanks for watching.